Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. One of the main tactics that the devil uses is they try to make it harder for me to make my videos. But you see that my key points are still right. In the last video I made a minor mistake. I said that the Temple of Edfu was above Horus's cult center Nekhen, Hierakonpolis, but it's actually below. But that doesn't change the bottom line. We know what the Egyptians were getting at, not just because of the depictions of people with, black skin, brown skin, what have you, but because of what they were saying. They were saying that the top martial artist is the son of God. Right? Horus is a deity of warfare, a deity of war, of martial arts, of justice, and not of technology, not of nerds developing technology, because Montu and Set were also deities of war. Set, a deity of brute force and trickery and kind of nerd-like thinking, as to be distinguished from Tot, who's seen as somebody who is an academic, who has a more noble pursuit than Set does, right? And so they kind of rushed me through the video because they're fuming me and poisoning me, and I'm trying to, get the video done with. That's part of why my handwriting is so good. That's why I didn't take the time to try to find a way to present my idea differently, because I'm in a hurry. So the Greeks must have taken their sweet time and built the temple lower than I thought that they did. And I was doing it off the top of my head. I haven't looked into these things for many years. I get fumed and poisoned, what have you. But they try to use that to pretend that they should be in charge. Imagine the most disgusting pedophiles and their allies, and they think if they persecute the most righteous person that ever lived, that he'll be dumb enough to follow him. Imagine this playing out in ancient Egypt. Imagine we're in ancient Egypt right now. Here I am, the top martial artist. I have a top martial arts challenge. It makes it clear to the entire population of ancient Egypt, if this was ancient Egypt, for example, that I'm Horus, the true son of God. And if there's some kind of pharaoh who doesn't give me my rightful place and allow me to be pharaoh, then everyone knows that he's just a coward and an idiot. Because the idea is pointing to the top martial artist, not some sissy punk pretending to be the top martial artist who's a merchant and trade worm. That's why Baal, who is the main enemy of God in the Bible, is a deity of merchants and sailors and rape and storms and so on and so forth. Okay, a deity of pirates. The people who put merchants above what's right, the people who put merchants above righteous martial artists, they're called rapists and their allies. They're called punks. And historically, they were also child molesters to a large degree. Or a romantic person who truly understands the importance of a divine relationship between a male and a female, he's not going to be gay. He's not going to be a child molester. This is not rocket science here. So when we see that Hierakonpolis, you should see on the screen, is in the southern part of Egypt, not the northern or the middle, and it's closer to the border of Nubia than the vast majority of other temples. We see that I'm right here. Now, in the Bible, they refer to the Nubians as the Cushites. And Nubia was a country like America's a country. So some people there were blacks from West Africa. Some people were from South Africa. And we've seen genetic studies that were saying just that, right? South Africa, the Great African Great Lakes, West Africa, what have you. And so just like in Africa right now, where Nigerians historically, even after all the sabotage, all the jealousy aimed at them, all the sabotage, are still the greatest warriors in Africa. And the Igbo's the greatest warrior tribe on the highest spectrum of being a warrior. So it was in Nubia. Those who were more like Nigerians were more, a noble, righteous Nigerian warrior, not just any old Nigerian, mind you, because Nigeria is a country, were more like Horus. This is not rocket science. It's like, if you had to speculate about who would win between Mike Tyson and Harry Potter, this is not rocket science. It's very straightforward. The location of the Hierakonpolis, aka Nekhen, the location of Edfu, even the Greeks built it by the Nubian border. And in the Bible, in Genesis 10, it said Ham begot Cush, Cush begot Nimrod, and Nimrod was a mighty warrior for the Lord. Okay? They're agreeing with the Egyptians about the characteristics of the mightiest warrior. If we were to look at it in terms of Noah has 3 children, right? One of them represents North Africa, and by default Africa in general, because the rest of Africa is not represented, and their trade routes to put different peoples there. One represents near Middle East. Excuse me, one represents North Africa and the near Middle East. The other one represents other parts of the Middle East. And the other one represents parts of Europe and Asia, or Japheth. Okay, which one is going to bring forth the mighty top martial artists before the Lord? It is the one that represents Africa. Look at the athletes in sports. Black people in Africa did not play football in the ancient world. They did not play basketball as far as anyone knows. And if they did do something similar, it was few and far between. What they did, and that was pervasive in the ancient world, was martial arts. And they did it better than everyone else on the planet. And that's what the Egyptians were saying, and that's what the people who wrote the Old Testament, the Tanakh and the Torah, were saying.